The purpose of this video is to run through the use of Net Historian to describe what it is and where it would be used, and just to give a kind of a quick demo of it operating as well. So Net Historian is basically a application which can reach out to devices on a network and then effectively take the data back from the devices, which would be used typically to control tanks, pumps, etc. So to give an example of where it would be used, say in this case here at the very beginning, I have a piping and instrument drawing. And basically on this drawing, you can see that there's different instruments here. And the instruments, they all generate signals, which then will be converted to some form of unit of measurement, such as flow rates, pressures or temperatures. So I basically, when an actual engineer is designing a system like this, they will create then some form of a document which looks similar to what I'm showing here, which is effectively like an instrument index, which can then be converted to an IO index. And you'll have all of the different tag names here, which then are shown on the actual the actual diagram, the schematic of the piece of equipment. And this then can further be looked at, where you actually have the controllers where all of the instruments are wired back into, and then we have effectively like an architecture, a kind of an IT and automation architecture sitting on top. And in here, you'll see these two different machines here. You'll see something called a collector, and then you have this historian server. And this will contain an application which effectively reaches out and takes all of these values which are being brought back to it through the instruments, and it will store the values here and then press them into effectively what is a large, very efficient database system. So if we were to look basically at the application, I will open up effectively a collector, and the collector is here. This is the screen for it. So the collector, when it's running, it's reaching out to try and get values over a network. And basically in Net Historian, first off, after we've created our collector, and there can be multiple collectors in an architecture, we then create all of our devices. So here in this case, we have, say, PW, Purified Water PLC. This is a Utility Management PLC. This is for a mixer system. And then we have an OPC server. And for those who are familiar with communication methods, NetHistorian has inbuilt drivers, which means that you don't need an OPC server, but you can certainly use an OPC server or communicate to devices that use OPC UA. So the next piece to look at then would be the actual tags. So effectively, as I'd shown earlier, where we have a typical scenario where we would have some form of index which represents the automation IO, and then we actually have an index which represents what values we would like to request from what device. We have a tag screen then, which shows all of the values and all of the instrument IDs and the actual more specific addresses in the PLC software. We basically have that full listing, and then the collector will effectively reach out and pull these values back at a known rate, such as, say, for example, every 10 milliseconds, or maybe every half a second, or maybe every 10 seconds. It depends on the actual value and how important, how often you want to store the values themselves. So once everything is being stored in the actual central repository as such, which I'll kind of show here again, what we can do is we can trend, or we can do, say, more complex analysis of trying to actually do automated batch reports and so on when the data is all back. A quick example of a trend here, if I just open up the trend screen here, what we can do is we just have our devices in the network. Here as an example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a live system which I actually have in front of me. So right in front of me here, I have a PT100, and effectively the PT100 is coming back through a transmitter, and then it's coming back into a PLC card right here. Okay, so effectively what I will do is I'll just select it on the trend screen here. So it's the mixer PLC TT03, and then I'll just literally just add it out here onto the trend. So I'll just hit the display, and you'll see that it's sitting here in an office environment. It's basically not fluctuating whatsoever. So then what I'll do here is I'll just go back to the camera, and I'll just put my hand on the actual PT100 right here. So this instrument right here, it has the heat of my hand coming on it, and I'll just basically just move that away. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to change this time here. I'm going to change it to 53, and then I'm just going to change this to 49. And what we should see is that the temperature is going up. And what I'll do then again here is I will take this temperature sensor now, and I will put it down into this glass of water right here. Okay, so then I'll bring back the trend, and what we'll do here is we'll see this, it's gone up, and now we'll see that it will go down. And that is a live connection then to the instrument, so you can actually kind of see in real time. In the scope of this, I won't fit in the batch reports. I'll do this in a kind of a follow-on video because it would be too much for the summary. But the version that I was using here was the light version of Net Historian, which is free for use with a limit of 100 tags, and that is with a certain limits which are in the terms and conditions, and they're in the download location, which I will link below. Thank you very much.